All right, welcome back to the Afterword. I'm Rex. I'm here with Vince and with Kirsten, and it's just us three today. What do you guys want to talk about?
Naomi's birthday.
It is Naomi's birthday.
That's
she
what I want
9 or 8?
She's 8. This episode is brought to you by Naomi's birthday. So she is 8 years old.
Happy birthday, Naomi.
Happy birthday, Naomi.
But she's sick on her birthday.
I know.
That's so crummy.
Yeah, it is kind of crummy. So
I bet she's faking it to get more presents.
that seems like something she would do. Yeah.
My sister, when we were little, we might need to cut this out. But my sister, when we were little, we used to sell like Girl Scout cookies, and she would tuck her arm in her shirt and act like she only had one arm, thinking that maybe she would sell more Girl
like
Scout
the Mercy?
cookies. Yeah. So maybe Naomi's trying that today too.
Maybe. Man, we definitely have to cut that out. But I probably won't.
Yeah. Autumn's not here.
Oh, man. This podcast exists to look back at the passage that was just preached, to ask a few questions about it. Like, what stood out? What is God like, according to this text? And then how do we apply it this week? So before we get into that, I do want to ask a get-to-know-you question. And I'm turning over a new leaf. I asked, like, a serious one, and it felt good. And I'm going to ask another one. Like, we've talked about shows and food and stuff like that. What's a book that you could pick up anytime and reread and enjoy? Other than the Bible.
I think a couple come to mind. One, Gentle and Lowly, is one that I think I can go back to.
That's a great one.
Yeah. And then I read a book years ago called Help My Unbelief, written by Barnabas Piper, who's the son of John Piper. That was really impactful for me because he launches from the verse in Mark 9 where the man says, I believe, help my unbelief. And basically says in order to pray that prayer, you have to have a certain amount of belief already. And so I was in a season of just wrestling with a lot of questions and doubt. And I think that that's a book that I could go back to and probably be blessed by again.
Yeah.
I wish mine were that serious. But I can almost always pick up one of the Chronicles of Narnia and just start wherever.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And just like be in it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're so easy to drop into. And I feel like they're books that like give gifts upon the reread. So we really enjoy that. We've read that. I guess we've been through twice with our girls. Yeah. Naomi has read most of them by themselves, not The Last Battle. But anyway, that one's weird. What were you doing, man? Anyway, let's turn our attention to the good book, to the text. And I'm going to read our passage today, which starts in Luke 9:28 and goes through verse 36. It says this: Now about 8 days after these sayings, he took with him Peter and John and James and went up the mountain to pray. And as he was praying, the appearance of his face was altered, and his clothing became dazzling white. And behold, 2 men were talking with him, Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke of his departure, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. Now Peter and those who were with him were heavy with sleep, but when they became fully awake, they saw his glory, and the 2 men who stood with him. And as the men were parting from him, Peter said to Jesus, Master, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah, not knowing what he said. As he was saying these things, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were afraid as they entered the cloud. And a voice came out of the cloud saying, This is my son, my chosen one. Listen to him. And when the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone. And they kept silent and told no one in those days anything of what they had seen. This is God's word. Vince, break down how you talked about this. Normal kind of 3 points, but what was the line you took?
I'm trying to get out of that. I'm trying to get to like 5 points or 9 points or 1
no
point.
Points.
Yeah, no points.
Yeah,
that's what I would do.
Just conversation.
I would do that.
Yeah. 3 hours later.
Yes. My mind just went blank. Oh yeah, we see it's the revelation of the glory of Jesus on the mountain. There's a moment where his face is altered, his clothes change. He's with these men, so that we see the glory of Jesus there on the mountain. We see the confusion of Peter, which I think we all would have been really confused about this confusion from Peter about what's going on, and then a voice from God the Father from the cloud to bring some understanding, some clarity to what is happening with a declaration of who Jesus is. So the point of all of it is, and this is the way, at least the way I take it, that Jesus has walked his disciples along for 8 or 9 chapters now, and now we see him really being almost more than his baptism, this declaration of who Jesus is and what he's come to accomplish.
Yeah.
That spans the breadth of history. There you go.
Sweet. Yeah, I love it. Before we get going, I notice quickly it says about 8 days after these sayings. What's Luke talking about?
Yeah, I mean, Luke does this a lot, where he just makes these, like, he makes up these conjunctions, kind of like and here's, meanwhile, back at the ranch.
And now for something completely different. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I've tried really hard. I've said this before. I've tried really hard to stay in the gospel according to Luke. But if you go back and look at some of the other gospel accounts, they have it's actually different. That it was a week later or 7 days later. And so some have said he's trying to, what's happening is it's a week after all of these things have happened. And so, that would give some explanation to, is Peter wanting to, is it a Sabbath? Is it actually the Feast of Tabernacles or the booths? Is there something going on here? Is that what Luke is trying to point out? And my take on it is because Luke uses those sources, he uses Matthew and Mark as sources, but that's not important to him. And so he's, I don't know, about 8 days later, something like that. These things are happening. So he's trying to tie it directly to what's gone on, but not so directly that we get caught up by that. Yeah.
I guess my question is, should we had a question about this actually. Verse 27 of Luke is something that was last week.
Yep.
It says, "But I tell you truly, there's some standing here who will not taste death until they see the kingdom of God."
Yep.
Is Luke trying to point back to that?
Yes.
Be like, that's what's happening right here, right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's the whole point of what he's doing, is like, some of you are not going to taste death until you see this, and then, hey, 8 days later, this has happened. You see it. It's right here.
Yeah, right here.
Yep.
Cool.
Good.
Well, what stands out in this text?
I mean, I just love Peter, I think, because I relate with him. But I appreciate Peter, and just that he does all the things that we probably all do, but it's written down in the Bible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I also feel bad for Peter because it's written down in the Bible.
It's documented forever.
Gosh, it's so great, though.
I think it's interesting also that Moses and Elijah are talking with Jesus about his departure. And you kind of made mention of this, Vince, but the fact that Moses and Elijah are talking with the person that they had foretold, and they're now talking about what Jesus is going to do. And it's just mind-blowing to think about, but also to consider, like, they didn't know exactly what they were talking about when they were alive the first time. And yet now they've shown up, however, supernaturally in this scenario, and they're talking with Jesus about what's going to happen. And so they do, at that point, have more information and understand. So it just makes me wonder about even just conversations that happen in heaven and what people there know, and the fact that these guys knew what was going to happen with Jesus.
Yeah, it could go that way. We could take it that way. Another way my mind goes is I wonder if they didn't, because they're not omniscient. And so I just wonder how long they were on the mountain talking with Jesus.
Yeah.
And where Jesus is like, well, let me tell you a couple things, Moses. When you said this, that's actually me. And Elijah, you're pointing forward to something you never knew, but here I am. I don't know. We don't have that information, but it is striking to me that they're talking with him about what he's set out to accomplish. Men who likely did not know that when they were speaking these things. Yeah.
Yeah. They're also both, I mean, I know you said there's a lot of around like connection. There's so much there. I think I don't want to like pull on that too much because again, most of it's conjecture.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. Like Moses and Elijah both are on top of Mount Sinai in the presence of God.
Yep.
And it doesn't say what mountain this is. I'm not going to assume that it's that. But like Jesus here leads the disciples to the top of a mountain with two people who have been in the presence of God and like walked with God, talked with God, and then is changed. And then they're interacting with. I kind of wonder, like for me, what happened to their like demeanor with Jesus after this?
Yeah.
Like, was it a little bit that they couldn't look at him? They couldn't talk to him normally? Were they like concerned? I don't know. In another gospel, another telling of this, Jesus says, peace.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? I think that's what I would say, at least. I don't know. There's got to be something like if I walked up Horsetooth with Vince and Vince was suddenly changed and, you know, lots of people who I knew had been long dead showed up and then, you know, God spoke and then we walked back down the mountain. I feel like it would be a really quiet walk down the mountain. I would let you walk ahead of me a ways.
That? Can we just not talk there? Yeah. I'm not sure what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things go unspoken.
Someone also mentioned to me after the service, which I thought was really interesting to consider. She just said, I wonder if Moses and Elijah were essentially like two witnesses of what was coming. And so she just referred to the passage in Deuteronomy that says that there need to be two witnesses in order for it to be a legal and binding court appearance. And so she was just asking, like, I wonder if Moses and Elijah stood as witnesses for heaven of who Jesus was and what was coming. And I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I thought it was really interesting to consider.
Yeah, there are a lot of different things. Some have said, and this is the primary one that a lot of people land on, is that they represent the law and the prophets that Jesus came to fulfill.
Yeah. Because Moses is the lawgiver and then Elijah's like the miracle worker in the prophets. Yeah.
Either way, I think it's that's fascinating that these two whom God has used in powerful ways in the past are here now in some ways as testimony to God's work, being the baton being handed over to Jesus.
Peter's line here is one of my favorite things ever. It's like, it's so good that I'm here.
It's so good that we're here.
You could take it so many ways. Yeah. Like he could be, like you said, like saying he's one of the important people on top of the mountain, or it could be like, well, it's a good thing I'm here. Yeah. And I don't know. Either way, I love it. What is God like according to this text?
I mean, the first thing that jumps to my mind is he's a God who desires for us to know his son and to know the power and the glory of his son and what he's come to accomplish. That's the kind of God he is. He wants that to be known.
I think he's also one that, I mean, there's so much mystery with God and things that we don't understand. And there's a whole realm that we don't often think about. And the fact that Moses and Elijah just showed up on a mountain with Jesus is pretty crazy. And yet Jesus doesn't seem shocked by it. He doesn't seem, it doesn't seem out of the ordinary to him. And so, at least not from the text that we can see. So I think that it's just, God is so much bigger and there's so much more to him and to this world than we ever could understand or begin to comprehend.
This is similar to what you said, Vince. I think there's something about the way that God not just he like goes out of his way here to reveal himself to his people. That's like all over the Bible. That's what we have in Scripture. But it's just such a strange thing, to your point, Kirsten. But at the same time, he just invites these guys with him and doesn't give them much explanation. They just watch it happen and it kind of unfolds. And even in like their minds, so whatever the reason, it's Moses and Elijah, when Peter talks about like, hey, it's good that we're here, let's build something for Moses, Elijah, and for Jesus. God doesn't say, he doesn't talk about Moses and Elijah. When God the Father speaks, he just says, this is my son.
Yeah.
Like, listen to him.
Yeah.
Like these guys, they're like, they're not in the same not in the same ballpark. I don't know what I was trying to say. I needed a metaphor and it didn't come when I wanted it to.
The same car. They're not on the same camel.
They're not on the same camel car. Cigarettes.
Well, I think that's why, that's what stands out to me about the whole text, is that this is all about Jesus. The whole thing is about, Moses and Elijah are talking with Jesus about what he's going to do.
Yeah.
There's no mention of and Jesus said it was kind of neat that Moses was doing some cool stuff. It's all about Jesus. And then Peter tries to make a move to do some things, and it all gets shifted to Jesus. And when the cloud moves, even God the Father's voice in the cloud, when that cloud dissipates, all that's left is Jesus. The whole thing is pointing to Jesus, the glory of Jesus.
I also love that it says, as Peter was saying these things, a cloud came over. God interrupted him. God was just kind of like, no, we're done with this. This is my son, my chosen one. Listen to him. So just even as Peter was being Peter and probably saying more than he needed to say, God interrupted him and redirected everything again to point to Jesus.
I think it's funny, since we're dogging Peter, to keep going. But verse 33 says, and as the men were parting from him. So Elijah and Moses are walking. They're done. They're walking away. They've come and done what they needed to do. I get this picture of Peter. It says, Peter said to Jesus, Master, it's good that we're here. Let's make 3 tents. So I get this picture of Peter seeing these guys walking away. The opportunity's about to go. He wants to grab them. No, wait, stay. They're already walking away. When Peter comes to, he's fully alert and awake, and he's trying to grab anything he can to keep the importance,
the magic going.
Yeah, keep it going. Yeah, that's right.
Which makes sense. You're in the presence of these prophets that he's been completely trained in.
These are the guys.
These are the guys, and the fact that he somehow gets to experience them. I'm sure he had a million questions for them and would want to just sit and learn from them and hear from them. And which also then speaks to the fact that maybe he didn't realize, but Jesus was sitting there with him.
Yeah.
And so maybe he was trying to lengthen this time with them, when in all reality he had Jesus with him, and that should have far surpassed time with these guys.
Yeah, for sure. Even Jesus even says something greater than Elijah is here. He says that earlier, I think in Luke 8 or something like that. Yeah. One thing that just occurred to me, it's easy, again, we're not bouncing between gospels here, but in Luke's gospel, a lot of the miracles that have happened so far have been a healing, or have been, feeding the 5,000. They've been meeting a need. This is the first miraculous thing that we see that is just about the glory of Jesus. Yep. There's no, I don't know. It's not like hippie Jesus that would he's going to feed people, he's going to heal people. No, this is actually Jesus in glory. And there's something interesting that Luke chooses to do that now. In the text, like you said, he's leading the disciples along, but there's not an alternate benefit to this miracle. It's just, this is who I am. Yeah. That's wild.
The whole point of it is that, yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to say, I'm really proud of us. I don't know, we have stayed on task so well, and Eric is not here. I think if Eric is here, we just try to bother him. Maybe that's it. Secondly,
it's so good that we're here.
It is so good that we are here. How do we apply this text? Again, it's all about Jesus and his glory. You asked some questions for this. You did some work. I know as we were talking this week, you're I don't really know how to apply this other than say, look at Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that, I think the thing that stands out to me is, I think that is the point. Look at Jesus. He is worth our attention. And yet we see it in Peter. There are so many things that can crowd in and cause us to move our eyes from him. And so I think a way to apply it is in recognizing where that's happened and having people around us to call us back, and having, the call from God the Father from the cloud is listen to him. So I think the application is there. Are we doing that? Are we listening to Jesus, what he has to say for us, primarily through his word? Are we listening? I think there are some ways to do it, but again, our eyes fixed on Jesus.
Yeah. So practically speaking, what does that look like for someone who, let's say they're a scientist working in a lab, and they're not making a name for themselves. They're just being faithful, doing whatever it is that they do. Like, just like, how do we put flesh on the bones of like, keep your focus on Jesus when you're just doing what is mundane, what is faithful, what is your day-to-day chores? Like, what does that look like?
For scientists who are in the lab, your job is meaningful. It's not mundane and boring.
No, I meant for them. I meant for them. Like, it probably is for them.
Just day in and day out.
Yeah, the everyday stuff. Your question is, what does it mean for us to have our eyes on Jesus in those moments?
Yeah, like just practically.
Yeah.
Like, again, it's one of those things, like you said in your sermon, that can be a real Christian-y thing to say, I need to keep my focus on Jesus. But like, what does that look like in real life for someone? And it doesn't have to be a scientist. It could be a teacher.
I was just being silly.
It could be anybody.
But I think in all of those things that we're called to do, we can make those things quickly about us in a bunch of different ways. And it may not even be about how we're trying to make a name for ourselves or become famous, but the job can be a job to an end in itself of just, I get more money and that's why I have it. And that money is for me. I think there are a lot, or on and on. I think there are a lot of ways that we can do everything in life where it becomes about us. I mean, that was the thing that came to me even as I was praying at the end of the sermon. Like, there are a lot of things going on in my own life right now that I have a tendency to make about me. And they're absolutely not about me. I mean, that would be like me saying, well, it's good that I'm here. But it's not about me. And the Moses and Elijah, so to speak, need to fade into the background. Not that those guys weren't important. They absolutely were. But their importance was to point forward to Jesus. And so I think for the mundane, everyday tasks of life, in what ways are they pointing us to Jesus? For our need for him, for our joy in him, for our gratitude for his provision?
Psalm 90 comes to mind with this. It's the Psalm of Moses. But in it, he says, teach us to number our days, that we may get a heart of wisdom. There's something in here about understanding your life is about more than you, like the context there. So not getting sucked into, not being afraid of the mundane or despising the mundane, but not getting sucked into it in such a way that it's like, I don't know, Jesus has called your life meaningful. And so it's not like you need to seek out and figure out how to do that, but like put in a huge effort and earn his respect in that. That's not what I'm saying. I think there is some work to do for the believer to say, all right, what individually for me, what does it mean? God has put me in a laboratory, or God has made me a stay-at-home mom, or God has got me working in a coffee shop or going to college or whatever. He's put me in these places. He has numbered these days. What does that mean? Why could he have done that? What does it mean to live and honor him in this situation? Again, to put flesh and bone, that's I'm answering your question for like specificity with kind of a vague thing, but I do think it has to kind of filter down into individual. I also think it means acknowledging Jesus is who he says he is daily. Like what is this? What does it mean for me to understand that Jesus is the Son of God, that Jesus is God himself, that he's here, that I should listen to him?
Yeah, and that everything we do, say, have, experience, everything in all of life is from him, or sustained by him, or controlled by him. So I think, I think it's just an awareness of that, an acknowledgement of that. And I think that's where my mind goes so quickly. It's not that I'm like diving head over heels into some sinful pattern, but I can quickly be lulled into not acknowledging that Jesus is over all things.
Yeah.
And I can quickly do that when I am the focus, when my day is hard, or when I'm feeling down or discouraged or whatever. My focus goes directly to me and not what Jesus is upholding.
Well, yeah, and I think it's easy, like, to have some like quiet time in the morning and spend some time in the Word and prayer. And then for me to get to the end of the day and be like, I didn't even think about God all day. I didn't think about Jesus. I was so focused on the things that were directly in front of me that I didn't even pause to really consider his involvement in every aspect of my life. And so I think sometimes we do get so wrapped up in just our mundane activities in life and the things that we're doing to be faithful. We're doing what's in front of us, but actually stopping and really considering, like, I'm able to do this because Jesus gave this to me, and he's equipped me to be able to do this, and he's given me everything I need in order to accomplish what's in front of me for the day. And so it is like, just, I think it's training our minds and our hearts to just continually look to him and express gratitude and thankfulness for what we're able to do and what we have in front of us. And tuning our hearts to sing his praise. Yeah,
I think there's part of that too is like putting forth the effort to seek the Lord where he will be found. And I think that, again, that's a very spiritual sounding phrase, but just very practically, like, we're told that this book that we open every Sunday is the words of God. You know, Peter says, like, the words of life. That's what this is. So there's something to seeking God in his word and then in his community. You know, we are called to seek the Lord together. We're going to talk more about, Eric's going to love this plug. We're going to talk more about corporate worship as like a spiritual practice this fall. But there's something that happens together. I'm not just talking on Sunday morning, but when you gather with another believer, even it's over coffee or when you're at work or at township, whatever it might be, there's something that happens there. And then I also think it's being willing and opening and asking God to speak by his Spirit too. I think God, in Scripture and in the church, in the early church, you see God speaking through, again, the Spirit, the Word, and the church. So like seeking God in those avenues where he's going to be found, where he said, I am here, it is part of that. And I don't want to pile like a to-do list on people, but like, again, this is a grace to us. Like, God has told us, here I am.
Yeah. And I don't think it's not rules piled up. It's making, we are rhythmed people.
Yeah.
And it's making the most of those rhythms. What do we have in our lives that are shaping us toward these things? So Kirsten, I'm with you. So this isn't against you, but there are often I get to the end of the day and I think, I didn't really even consider where was the involvement of Jesus in my day. But when I do that, it's because I've intentionally put some rhythms in my life where those marks are there for me day after day. And so I think that would be my encouragement. This is an application, I think, to look at your life and think, are there some times, can I think about meals being that time or whatever it is, some rhythmed things of our day where our focus goes to what has Jesus accomplished in these last 3 hours, in these last 6 hours. What has he done? Where can I point to him?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, as a family, we've practiced like writing down things we're thankful for at the end of every day. But even taking that a step further and saying, where did you see Jesus today? Like, did you see him sustaining you or encouraging you or correcting you? Like, I think if we actually pause at the end of the day and just consider, where did I see Jesus today? It could be a helpful practice to put into place.
That's great. Yeah. All right. We'll put a pin in it for now. Hey, thanks for listening to this. Hope it's helpful. If you have questions, send them to Eric. Like I said, you can send those to info@thetownchurch.org, and we'll address them as they come. But we encourage you to read ahead next week. We're picking up in
37 through 50.
There it is, 37 through 50. Luke 9 is so long. Look at that.
It is.
It's pretty great. Anyway, I encourage you to read ahead. Again, these are words for you. I encourage you to prepare, pray about what God might do in your life this week as you are in his word, and then as we gather next week. We're looking forward to it. We'll see you soon.